just open the door. I am telling you that there is someone in there with you.
My dead wife is not haunting this house.
Put them back!
At the beginning of the movie, we see Dany renovating a house she and her husband Ted have recently moved into. After finishing some work, she goes downstairs, where a camera takes her photo. We are then introduced to Ted, a busy psychiatrist at an understaffed hospital. Dany calls him to let him know she found a signal in the house and that she will be staying at their new home tonight. She then calls her sister Darcy to invite her for dinner the next day, but the call goes to voicemail, so Dany leaves a message saying that they are connected. Now that night, when Dany comes out of the house to take some of her stuff from the car, she suddenly gets startled, hearing some noise, but when she turns her flashlight in that direction, she doesn't see anyone there. She returns inside the house and locks the door, but then she feels as if someone is outside. Perplexed, she goes to check and finds a man standing there who asks her to open the door, telling her that she's in trouble. He says he saw her come out of the house just now, leaving the door open, and that someone went inside. Dany, confused, says she didn't see anyone and asks what he's doing outside her house. She warns him that her husband is going to be home any minute, but he responds by saying that Dr. Ted works nights. Growing frightened, Dany asks if he's one of Ted's patients, to which he replies that he heard them in the walls, came here, and saw someone. Just then, Dany hears a noise from inside and starts to think the man might be right. She moves toward the door to open it, but before she can, the scene cuts off. We then see a man working on a sketch in a room filled with drawings, including one of the men who came to Dany's door. Suddenly, he hears a noise, which he initially ignores, but when he hears it again, he becomes a bit frightened. He opens the door to check outside, and upon seeing someone there, he quickly shuts the door and hides under the bed in fear. The door opens and the man remains hidden, terrified. After a while, he cautiously comes out to check and goes to the room across from his. There, he discovers that the man living there has been brutally murdered, and it's the same man who had an artificial eye. The scene shifts to Ted with Darcy, who owns a shop of haunted and cursed items and is blind in both her eyes. She tells him about a certain item, saying that it's haunted. Ted asks her what she means, and she explains that there was an unpleasant man who spent most of his life working as a bellboy in a hotel. One night, he was showing a drunk guest to his room when the guest shoved him down the stairs, breaking his neck and killing him in the fall. A few days later, the receptionist rang the bell to summon the new bellboy, but instead, she saw the old bellboy running toward her, looking very unhappy. Ted asks, "So if you ring that bell, a dead bellboy will come running?" and suggests she ring it to see what happens. Darcy warns him that it's not something to be taken lightly, noting that the last two people who rang the bell were found dead. He then tells her that Declan Barrett died last week of a heart attack. Darcy asks who he was, and Ted explains that Declan was at the halfway house with Olin Bull the night Olin was killed. He adds that while clearing out Declan's belongings, they found Olin's fake eye. He admits that he wanted to crush it under his shoe, but remembered that she wanted it. When he asks her why she wanted the eye, Darcy says that Olin took her sister's life, so she wants to see what was going through his mind when he was dying, whether there was any regret or only fear. As Ted is about to leave, Darcy invites him to dinner sometime, mentioning that it will be a year next week, and she feels like talking about Dany. Ted replies that maybe a week or two would work, as he and his girlfriend Jana are trying to settle into their new house. Surprised, Darcy asks if he's already met someone, and Ted explains that he knew Jana from the hospital, where she works as a pharmaceutical rep. He adds that when Dany died, Jana was there for him. Later, Darcy uses her psychic ability and touches Olin's eye, which triggers a series of visions. In these visions, she sees Olin, her sister Dany, and a masked man. She rushes back to her shop and heads toward a trunk, and as she touches it, the camera briefly focuses on some of the cursed items around her, and the scene then cuts off. We then see Ted with Jana, and Jana complains about not sleeping last night, reminding him she can't sleep when he's working nights and she's alone. Ted reassures her that once Dr. Crotty retires, he'll have regular hours. Jana shows him his late wife's camera, which she found while clearing out the store, and asks him to look at the photos she took. At first, Ted sees nothing unusual, but then he notices Dany's face in them and says it's Dany's camera, so of course there would be pictures of her. Jana insists she took the photos 2 nights ago, and Ted suggests it's just double exposure. Jana tells him that last night when she was going to bed, she saw Dany in the house. Ted says he hears crazy things all night at work and doesn't need to hear them at home, to which Jana asks him not to call her crazy, as she's just telling him what she saw. Ted sarcastically asks if it was Dany's ghost, to which Jana says no, but the lack of sleep is affecting her, so she wants them to move back to her apartment until he starts working regular hours. Ted agrees to move but insists that his dead wife isn't haunting the house, saying that Jana sounds like Dany's sister with all the ghost talk. Jana then shows him a trunk that Darcy sent over while he was asleep, and when Ted asks what's inside, Jana says she doesn't know because it's locked. Ted jokingly suggests that maybe Darcy is inside, to which Jana replies that she's outside. Ted brings Darcy inside and introduces her to Jana, who says she would have been prepared if she'd known Darcy was coming. Darcy asks if Ted didn't mention that he invited her, to which Ted says he didn't even know she was coming and asks when he invited her. Darcy reminds him that last week when he visited the store, he said she should come by for Dany's anniversary. Ted explains he's about to head to work and that Jana is staying in the city tonight, to which Darcy asks if he can call in sick. But Ted replies that people are counting on him as they are short-staffed, and Jana adds that she has plans in the city. Ted offers to drop Darcy off on his way, but she says she'd prefer to stay there if that's okay. Ted reluctantly agrees. Darcy unlocks the trunk and opens it, and Ted asks Darcy if has he seen this before, to which she says it was her mother's, and she wants him to have it as she would be happy to know she sent it here. She then asks Ted to show her where the bathroom is, and while taking her there, Ted apologizes for the mix-up and expresses that he feels bad leaving her there alone. After a while, Jana tells Ted she doesn't want Darcy there, to which he responds that it's not his fault if Darcy can't take a hint. Jana asks about the trunk and why she wants them to have it, to which Ted says has no idea, but they'll get rid of it as soon as she's gone. After Ted leaves, Jana closes the trunk, and as she turns around, Darcy asks if she knows that a traditional gift for a couple's 5th wedding anniversary is something made of wood. She explains that for her parents' 5th anniversary, a witch her mother knew gave them that, to which Jana responds that she and Ted aren't married yet and suggests that maybe she should take it back. Later, Ted reviews Declan's file and discovers strange sketches inside it, depicting a creature attacking someone. Meanwhile, as Jana leaving for the city, she notices that the trunk is open and that the thing inside it is now out of it. She asks Darcy why she took it out of the box, to which Darcy replies that she didn't. Jana then begins to leave. However, she realizes that her car keys are missing. Jana searches for the keys around the house but doesn't find them, so she comes back outside to tell Darcy that she can't locate them, to which Darcy responds that she was hoping the 3 of them could spend some time together. Later, Darcy asks how long she and Ted have known each other, and Jana replies that it's been 2 years. Darcy then asks if there was anything romantic between them, while her sister was still alive, to which Jana says they were just friends. Jana mentions that Ted told her that she works at an antique store, to which Darcy explains that it was her mother's store, which she inherited after she passed away. She adds that she also can read objects, meaning she can pick up an object and reveal everything about its history. Jana asks if she is a psychic, to which Darcy explains that personal items, like watches and rings that have been in close contact with the skin, work best for her readings. Darcy then inquires if Jana minds staying alone at night while Ted is working. Jana admits she doesn't enjoy it, especially after what happened to her sister, and the thought of another one of Ted's patients showing up at the door while she's alone. Darcy says that Dany would never have allowed a strange man into her home in the middle of the night. She insists that Olin didn't kill her sister, and in a flashback, we see that on that night, Dany didn't open the door. Olin told her that maybe he had scared off whoever was outside and offered to go into town to call the police. He asked Dany to stand by the door and keep her eyes open, instructing her to pull the door open and run if she heard anything. After Olin leaves, Dany retreats into her tent with the camera, and when she checks the photos, she is horrified to see a masked man in one of them. Terrified, she opens the tent to check outside, but suddenly the masked man appears right in front of her. Startled and frightened, she is unable to escape, and in the next scene, we see that the man has killed her. Jana mentions that Ted told her Olin was put away for beating his mother to death, to which Darcy responds that Olin's mother was abusive and had already blinded him in one eye and was coming for the other. Darcy adds that if she only had one working eye, she would kill to protect it too. Jana then asks if Olin didn't kill her sister, who did? Meanwhile, we see Ted with Ivan, an orderly who works at Ted's psychiatric facility. Ivan mentions that he never told him his wife had a blind twin. Surprised, Ted asks how he knows that, to which Ivan explains that he was in town the other day and wandered into a small antique shop where he nearly had a heart attack upon seeing what he thought was his dead wife sitting there. Just then, Ted receives a call from Jana, who tells him that she's stuck at the house because she can't find her car keys. She mentions that Darcy has been saying some strange things to her, like claiming to be a psychic. Jana explains that Darcy pulled out a glass eye and said it belonged to the man who killed Dany, but then added that he didn't kill her. Instead, that the killer was his orderly, Ivan. Ted reassures Jana that Darcy isn't well and that he plans to talk to her. Jana, feeling uneasy, tells him that Darcy has been asking a lot of questions about their relationship, which has her on edge. Ted suggests that she go to bed, lock the door, and that he will make some calls to see if he can leave the facility early. As Jana disconnects the call, she notices the wooden figure looking at her, causing her to drop her phone in fear. However, when she looks back again, she finds that the wooden figure has returned to its normal position. Scared, Jana goes downstairs to retrieve her phone and takes a closer look at the wooden figure, and she notices 5 holes in its head. Curious and uneasy, she uses a surgical scissor to extract something from one of the holes that appears to be hair. From another hole, she pulls out a photograph of Dany and Darcy, followed by another photograph from a 3rd hole. When she reaches into the 4th hole, she finds a tooth, which she quickly puts back. Finally, from the last hole, she takes out a small tube containing blood. At that moment, Darcy sternly tells her to put everything back, and when Jana asks, "What is this?" Darcy repeats, "Put them all back now." Jana quickly puts them back and leaves there saying goodnight to her. Darcy then sits in front of the wooden figure, mimicking its position, and the scene cuts to black. After a while, when Jana comes out, she finds Darcy sleeping in the same position. Jana heads to the washroom, but the light suddenly goes off, only to turn back on a moment later. Returning to her room, Jana begins watching Dany's videos on the camera, which show Dany in the house with Ted before it was furnished. Jana checks the door, turns off the lights, and starts the video again. But this time, she is horrified to see a ghostly figure instead of Ted. Dany's ghost appears in the room, urging her to run. But when Jana turns on the light, she finds no one there. She rushes out in fear, but when she hears footsteps coming towards her, she grabs a knife for her safety. She approaches Darcy and tries to wake her up, but only then trunk suddenly close. Terrified, she moves towards the trunk, thinking someone is there, and as she opens it, she finds her keys inside. She quickly grabs them and flees the house, and only then do the lights go out. Outside, she sees Dany's ghost emerging from the darkness, prompting her to quickly get into her car and drive away from the scene. After a while, Ted returns home and notices the wooden figure sitting in a chair. He then goes to Jana's room to check on her, but finds she is not there. Next, he discovers Darcy sitting oddly in a corner and asks what she is doing there. He also inquires about Jana, mentioning that she isn't picking up her phone, to which Darcy responds that Dany frightened Jana away. Ted tells Darcy that Jana called him earlier, saying someone who works at the hospital with him had killed Dany. Darcy says, a porter named Ivan, and asks if he knows who she's talking about. Ted confirms there is an orderly named Ivan who works with him, and Darcy acknowledges that this is the same person. Ted insists that Olin is the one who killed Dany and explains that he was released the week before, came out here, and killed her. Darcy counters that Olin came to save Dany, but she dragged him from his bed and killed him, and she is going to pay for that. Ted asks Darcy if something is affecting her thinking, noting that Dany had mentioned how she was seeing and hearing things that weren't there when she was ill. He suggests that she come with him to the hospital so he can arrange a scan and find out what's going on. Darcy refuses, saying he will get her committed there. Ted says he could have her committed if he thought she was a danger to herself or someone else, to which she says she is a danger to Ivan. So if he is going to send someone out here to get her, send him. Ted asks Darcy why Ivan would kill Dany, noting that they never even met, to which Darcy responds that Ivan killed her because he asked him to. She then stands up and says that Ted could have simply told Dany that he no longer loved her and had met someone else. Dany would have been heartbroken, but she would have eventually moved on. Instead, he had Ivan come to the house and kill Dany. In a flashback, we see Ivan asking Ted why he doesn't just divorce Dany, to which Ted replies that she loves him and would never get over him. He adds that once she finds out about Jana, there's no way they'll be able to keep the house, and he has invested everything into it. Meanwhile, Olin listens to their conversation from his room. Ted instructs Ivan to kill Dany while she's sleeping in her tent, and when Ivan asks if the motive should be sexual, Ted firmly rejects the idea, insisting that he wants it to be quick and painless. Darcy tells Ted that she had originally planned to kill him, but now thinks it would be worse to expose him. She vows to ensure that he loses everything. Ted mentions Detective Peter, the police officer in charge of Dany's case, and asks if she trusts him. Darcy confirms that she does, and Ted suggests that she call him, share everything she has just told him, and gauge his reaction. He adds that Peter will likely tell her it was Olin who killed her sister, and will review the evidence with her, and if she is still unsatisfied, he proposes having Peter question Ivan. Darcy demands that he call Peter and inform him of what he did, and then call Yvonne and send him out here so she can kill him. Ted replies that he doesn't have Peter's number with him. He says he will leave his phone here and will call Peter from his office and ask him to contact her, and if she doesn't answer, he will have him come to the house to speak with her in person. Ted returns to his office, and after a while, his phone rings in the house. Darcy gets up to answer it, but we see that it is Ted calling her from his office. It is then revealed that when Darcy mentioned she had planned to kill him, Ted had opened a trapdoor, knowing that Darcy, being blind, would fall to her death. As Darcy rushes to pick up the phone, she falls through the trapdoor. Meanwhile, Ted confronts Ivan and tells him they have a problem. Later, Ivan arrives at Ted's house and notices the wooden figure looking upwards. As he ventures further inside, he discovers Darcy lying lifeless on the floor, taking her last breaths. Ivan calls Ted, informing him that he found the phone, which is broken and appears to have fallen, just as he suspected. Ted asks if the phone is still working, and Ivan replies that it is for now, but he doubts it can be repaired. Ivan then tells Darcy not to worry, saying it's nearly over. However, despite her weakened state, Darcy raises her hand and says that they are connected. Now, as Ivan is about to leave, he notices the camera clicking photos in Jana's room. Perplexed, he enters the room and finds the camera, and when he checks it, he sees a face on its broken screen. Meanwhile, Darcy recites some spells, and Ivan hears eerie screeches echoing through the house. Scared, he goes downstairs, only to find that the wooden man is missing from its place. But to his horror, he sees the wooden man standing in a dark corner of the room. He shines his flashlight on it, terrified to see that the wooden man is now alive. In a panic, Ivan tries to flee, and when he sees the wooden man approaching him, he jumps from the first floor, breaking his leg in the process. The wooden man then moves toward him, grabs him by the head, and lifts him into the air. As this happens, Darcy sees Dany watching her from the trapdoor and smiling. Darcy dies, and with her death, the wooden man becomes lifeless once again. Next, we see Ivan in the psychiatric facility, where he asks Ted why he is here. Ted explains that, given his prior convictions and his recommendation, it was decided that this was the best place for him until he was in a fit state to talk. Ted then asks him what happened at the house, to which Ivan says someone attacked him. And when Ted asks who, Ivan says he could not see as it was dark. Ted tells him that when he woke up, he told the nurse that a man of wood came to life and attacked him. Ivan confirms that that's what happened, to which Ted says if that thing was alive, how is it that he was able to drag it outside and burn it without it struggling or screaming in pain when he set it on fire? He says the nurse also said that he requested a priest and then asks Ivan why he wants to see a priest, to which Ivan says he wants to confess to all the things he has done. Ted warns him that if he tells a priest just one of the things he has done, he will spend the rest of his life in prison. Ivan retorts that it's better to spend eternity in hell, to which Ted counters that there is no such thing as forever and no place called hell. Ivan insists he won't reveal anything about him, but Ted says people will question why he failed to recognize Ivan as a psychopath, why he discharged him early, and why he befriended and employed him. Ted concludes by noting that one advantage of working in such a place is that people rarely ask questions, except when a patient dies violently at the hands of another. But, as he always believed, there's nothing that can't be explained. After a while, another patient enters Ivan's room and eats him alive. Ted returns home the next morning and finds a package at his door from Odello's Oddities. He opens it and finds a box in it, in which there is the same haunted call bell about which Darcy had told him. He puts it on the table, and after thinking for a while, he rings it and nothing happens, and he feels that it's fake. However, after a while, we see that bellboy's ghost standing beside him, and the movie ends here. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the chills, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a scare. Until next time, stay spooky.